Hi everybody, this is Rob Windsor, and in this SharePoint developer walkthrough, I'll show you how to build a custom site page. This video will be a slightly more detailed version of the walkthrough that I posted to my blog a couple days ago. In this demo, I'll be using Visual Studio 2010, targeting SharePoint 2010, but the demo would be the same if I was using Visual Studio 2012, targeting SharePoint 2010, or Visual Studio 2012, targeting SharePoint 2013. So I'll choose File, New Project. I'll choose the empty SharePoint project template and call the project Site Page Demo. Click OK. It's asking me what site do I want to use for debugging. I'll be using this freshly created team site. And then whether I want to create a sandbox or a farm solution, I'll be creating a farm solution. So I'll select that and then click Finish. Now I said I want to create a site page, but if I right-click on the project in the Solution Explorer and then choose Add New Item, there is no site page item template. We won't find it here. So we have to create it sort of manually. But we can actually get a little bit of help by creating an application page. The markup that's generated for this page is a good starting point for the site page we'll create in just a moment. So I'll choose Application Page and I'll click Add. And here's the markup we'll be using in just a moment. And then I'll come back to the project and I'll right click and choose Add New Item. And this time I'll choose a module. The ASPX page we're going to create for our site page is what's called a page template. So that goes up into the SharePoint system folders. And then we use a module to take a copy of that page template and push it into the target site, or really the SharePoint content database for the target site. I'll call the module Site Pages and then click Add. We get two files. One is an element manifest. We'll examine this in more detail later on. Right now, just close it. And then we get this file called sample.txt. So I'll use this file for our page template. So I'll right click on it and choose Rename and call it My Page Template.aspx. Hit Enter. Click Yes here when it asks me if I'm sure I want to change the file extension. Then I'll double click on that file and remove the placeholder code, or placeholder text actually, that was in there. Then I'll go back to the application page. I'll select all of the markup and copy it to the clipboard, and then come back over to our site page and paste that in. With that done, I no longer need the application page, so I can delete it along with the two folders that were created when I added it to my project. So I'll right-click on Layouts and choose Delete. Moving back to our site page, we now have the beginnings of the markup, but we're also going to want some code behind. Now, when working with site pages in Visual Studio, we're basically back to where we were in ASP.NET 1.0. So we don't have the same kind of tooling support that we're used to when working with ASPX pages. So for example, I can't come over here in the Solution Explorer and right-click on the page and choose View Code and be brought into the code behind. There's also no designer file. So we're basically going to have to do everything that the designer would normally do for us. And that includes creating the class, which will represent our code behind. So I can put this anywhere in my project, but I'll put it in the Site Pages folder so that it's beside the ASPX file. So I'll right-click here and choose Add Class. And I'll call the class My Page Template. And click Add. And this is going to inherit from system.web.ui.page. So I'll just put page here as the type name, and then I will resolve and then add in the appropriate using statement. And I also want to make this class public. Now, we'll make some more changes to this class in just a moment, but for now I want to switch back to the markup. So as I mentioned earlier, what we're building here is the page template. So this page will be copied into the SharePoint system folders when we deploy the solution package. And then we'll use the module to take copies of this page template and push them into the SharePoint site. That's called a page instance. So we have one page template living in the system folder, and then potentially multiple page instances living in the different SharePoint sites. Once a page instance is in a site, an end user can go and modify the markup for that page using SharePoint Designer. And because of this, inline code is not allowed in site pages. We don't want end users going and writing C# or VB code that's going to run in our SharePoint environment. So what I need to do now is modify the markup to remove any indication that we might be trying to use inline code. So let me go into full screen here. And the first thing I want to do is remove the two import statements, or two import directives at the top. And then I also want to modify the page directive here. So I want to remove the language attribute, auto event wire up, and the code behind attribute. And that should just leave us with inherits. And this is the wrong type name here. So let me delete that. And then come back over to our code behind. And we need the fully qualified name. So I'll grab the namespace and then dot and then the class name. And then we also want to indicate which master page file we're using. But with site pages, it's not dynamic master page file attribute. It's just master page file. Now we can do a little bit extra cleanup here. So for example, I don't need this content control for the page title and title area. For the page title, I want to change this to my site page. And then in just a moment, we're going to be adding in our UI controls into the main content placeholder. Actually, let's go ahead and do that now. So I'll get it a full screen here, and then I'll come over and I'll open up the toolbox. Now you might not see the ASP.NET Web Form controls when you open up the toolbox. I do here, but if you don't, all you need to do is just save off the files, close the ASPX file, and then reopen it. And if that doesn't work, and occasionally it won't, then just right-click on the ASPX file, choose Open With, and make sure the web form editor is selected here, and then click OK. Once you do that, then you should be sure to have the ASPX controls here in your toolbox. All right, so we're going to build something very simple. I'll just put a button, and then some break tags. So let's put 2. And then a label. All right, so in our main content placeholder, or our main content control, we have a button. The ID is button 1. This is going to be important. And we have a label, and the ID is label 1. Now, as I've mentioned a couple times, we have to do everything the designer normally would do for us when we're building an ASPX page. And that includes creating the variables or the objects in our code behind page that represent these controls. So these will be fields or class level variables. So let me create those. So that's protected. And I have a button, so I want to create a button. And I use control dot to add the using statement for system.web.ui.webcontrols. And the name here has to match the ID. So that's button 1. And then we also have a label called label 1. So again, protected label, label 1. So we have a button and a label. And what I want to do is when you click the button, I want to show the current time in the text of the label. So I need to hook up the button's click event handler. And in here, again, I can't come over to the designer and go into design mode and double click on the button to add the click event handler. So I'm going to do this all through code. And we attach event handlers in the page init. So let's add that. So protected void page underscore init. And this takes the standard event handler signature. So that's object sender, and then event args e. And then I want to say here button one dot click, and then I register the event handler using plus equals, and then tab. So the second tab creates the shell for the event handler method, and the first tab attaches or registers the event handler with the click event. All right, so I'm just going to make this protected. And then in here, again, I just want to set the text of the label to the current time. So that's label1.text is equal to date time dot now dot to long time string. All right, so that completes our code behind, and our markup is also complete. So that's our page template. And now what we need to do is get back to the module that's going to provision instances of the page template into the SharePoint site. And that's all managed through the element manifest here. So you can see here, this is a module, but all the really important stuff is here in the file element. So the path is site pages mytemplate.aspx, right? So if we come back to the Solution Explorer, there's a folder called site pages. There's our page there. So this is the path to the page template. And then the URL is where this is going to go in the SharePoint site. So it's going to go in a virtual folder or a document library with the address site pages. And then this will be the file name. So I want the page instances, to be called my page, not my page template. So I'll just change that. And then finally, I mentioned that users can edit these files in SharePoint Designer. And to allow that, I need to set the type to ghostable. We'll talk about customization or ghosting in just a sec, but for now, just understand that we need to have this type set to ghostable here. And then one final bit of cleanup before we can test. This element manifest is part of this feature. And if I open up the feature designer here, we can see that the title of the feature, this is what the user will see, is not very good. It's the project name and then the feature name. So let's give this a more meaningful name. We'll call it add custom site pages. We only have one, but we potentially could have more. And then really also, I guess because we only have one feature, we could leave it as feature one. But we really should clean this up and give it a meaningful name. So let's rename the feature to site pages. All right, so we're ready to go ahead and deploy and test out our work. Now, in the default deployment, Visual Studio will activate any features, and that's this feature here. We don't want that to happen. So I'm going to go to the project properties, and in the SharePoint tab here, I'm going to change the active deployment configuration to no activation. So do the deployment, but don't activate features, because I want to show you how to activate the feature as if you were an end user. All right, I'm going to save off the work. I'm going to right-click on my project in the Solution Explorer and choose Deploy. This will build the project. It will create the SharePoint solution package and deploy it out to the site, or deploy it out to my dev server here. All right, so I said that this becomes the page template. So let's go take a look for that. So remember that our project name is Site Page Demo, and our feature is called Site Pages. So I'll come over to this link to the SharePoint system folders, and then I'll open up Template, and I'll open up Features, and then if I scroll down, we should see Site Page Demo _ Site Pages. And inside of here, we should have a folder called Site Pages. And inside of here, we should have our page template. So our template is in the system folders, and our paged instances will be within the SharePoint site. So let's come over to the SharePoint site, and I'm going to open up the SharePoint document or shared documents library here. And then go to the library settings, and I'm going to click this button here, which is Open with Explorer. All right, so I'll go down one folder, and there we see the folder site pages. And currently we just have these two files in there. All right, so let's come back to SharePoint and then go to Site Actions, Site Settings, Manage Site Features. There's our feature, Add Custom Site Pages. So I'll activate that feature. And activating the feature ran our module. So a copy of the page template was put into the database, put into the site. So if I come back over to our Site Pages virtual folder, then I'm going to right click and choose Refresh, and then now we see the page. So now if I come back to SharePoint and navigate to that page, so it is demo/site pages /mypage.aspx. There's our button, there's our label. If I click the button, we can see the current time. Now, I mentioned earlier that we can have multiple page instances from the single page template. So let's see that. Let's go create a child site here. So I'll create a new site, and we'll call this our child. Let's call it child 1, and then set the URL to child 1, or child 1, not child 2, and then click create. Okay, so now we're in the child site. So let's do the same thing we did before. Let's go to Shared Documents, and then go to Library, and then Open with Explorer. So we can see that the demo site, we're in the child site here, Shared Documents. I go back up to the child site and go to Site Pages, and we don't have the page because I haven't activated the feature in this site. So I'll come back to SharePoint, Site Actions, Site Settings, Manage Site Features. In the child site, activate the Add Custom Site Pages here, and then come back over here. Again, do a refresh. There's the page. And then come back over to our child site and navigate to mypage.aspx. And same behavior as before. So now we have two page instances based on the same page template. I also mentioned that we can edit pages using SharePoint Designer. So let's do that. So I'll go here and open up the child site. So I want to open site, and let me just grab the URL to the child site here. Come back to Designer, paste that in, and click Open. And then I'll go to All Files, Site Pages, mypage.aspx, and I'll click Edit File. And for some reason, this link doesn't seem to be working, so let me click the toolbar button here. I get a message saying that the site does not contain any regions that are editable in safe mode. Do you want to open this page in advanced mode? And I'll choose yes. So now we have access to the markup. And then I can come down here and just add in, say, a couple more break tags. And then let's add in, say, an H2 and put here modified in SharePoint Designer. And then click Save. Now it's saying here, saving your changes will customize this page so that it's no longer based on the site definition. So what this really means is we're going to put the page into a customized state. So let's talk about customized and uncustomized. Currently, the two-page instances are in an uncustomized state. So the first time I go navigate to one of those two-page instances, SharePoint will take a look in the database for the site. It will see that the page is there, but the page currently points to the page template living in the SharePoint system folders because it hasn't been customized. So basically SharePoint or ASP.NET will load that page, will compile it, and then we'll run the compiled version of the page. And then if I go to either one of the page instances, SharePoint will notice that there is a page there, but it hasn't been customized. So it will just run the compiled version of the page. When I click yes here, what's going to happen is this page will now be saved into the SharePoint database. So now when I navigate to this page instance, SharePoint will see, oh, the page is in the database. I'm going to run that version. Right? So the page becomes customized. When you're customized, you're running out of the SharePoint database. You're no longer using the version that's in the SharePoint system folders or the template. So uncustomized, we'll actually use the template. Customized, we'll use the content in the database. Ghosted is a synonym for uncustomized, and unghosted is a synonym for customized. All right, so let's go ahead and save our changes into the database by clicking yes here, and then come back over to SharePoint and navigate in the child site to mypage.aspx. Whoops, mypage.aspx. There we go, and hit enter. And we're going to get an error. Okay, so this error is saying the base type, sitepagedemo.sitepages.mypagetemplate, is not allowed for this page. The type is not registered as safe. So what does that exactly mean? Well, in SharePoint, actually, let's go over there. So let me just open up a new instance of Windows Explorer. And then let's go to the web config file for the current web application, the SharePoint web application. So that's inetpub www.root WSS virtual directories 80. And then let's come in here and open up the web config file in Notepad. And if we scroll down not very far, you're going to see all of these save control entries. So basically what you can do is you can add an entry into the web config indicating that all of the types in a given namespace or specific types in a namespace are considered safe to run within SharePoint. And to be able to run a custom site page with code behind that has been customized, I need to indicate to SharePoint that that class, the code behind for the page, is safe to run. And I haven't done that. Now, it seems pretty tricky to do this, but it's actually quite easy. So I'm going to go over to my Visual Studio project, and then I'm going to go to the Site Pages node here. And if I come down to the Properties window, you'll see the property at the bottom here is this one called Save Control Entries. So I'll click on that, and then there'll be a little ellipsis button here. So I'll click on that, and it brings up the Save Control Entries editor, or dialog. I'll click Add to add a new Save Control entry. And then if I open this up a little bit bigger here, okay, so we'll see the assembly is the current assembly full name. So this is a token that will get replaced by the fully qualified name of the current assembly. The namespace is sitepagedemo.sitepages. And the type name here is currently star, meaning all of the types within this namespace, but we want to be a little bit more specific, so we're going to say it's my page template. That's the name of the class which implements the code behind for our site page. So I'll click OK, and now when I deploy my package, the SharePoint deployment mechanism will automatically take care of updating the web config with that save control entry. So I'll right-click on my project and choose Deploy to update the solution package and deploy out the changes. And then I'll come back to my SharePoint site and I'll refresh this page. And there we can see the page with the change that I've made in SharePoint Designer, and I still have the functionality I had previously. That completes the walkthrough. For more information like this, you can check out my blog at msmvps.com/blogs/Windsor. My Pluralsight courses, in particular for information like this, you can check out the SharePoint 2010 Fundamentals, and I'm currently working on a SharePoint 2013 Fundamentals, the new version of this course, or I have several other courses that you might be interested in. And finally, you can check me out on Twitter at twitter.com/RobWindsor.